Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. A little while back, I saw a post on LinkedIn that I felt personally attacked by. The author had said how very sick she was of hearing the word journey used so much within the business podcasts that she was listening to, that it was all journey this and journey that. But I'm going to level with you. It's the word for it through, and genuinely it is the hill that I will die on. A business idea is one tiny part of the story, besides the fact that the business idea itself will likely take many different forms along the way as we go, and that we're never really done when tackling something like building a business for ourselves. And you just evolve so much as a person along the way. And if that isn't one hell of a journey, I just don't know what is. It's a word I cannot and will not stop using. My guest today, she knows all about this particular expedition. See what I did there? Kathryn McGarvey is in the business of audience insights today. One of the few businesses she's learnt, grown, languished and flourished within, as I'm sure you can relate to. In sharing her business building story, you're going to hear about realizing that you've become unemployable, finding the business within the business, why that term journey for the experience of business is fundamental to our expectations of it, building as you go, the dark revenue moments we can experience, and finding connection as a solopreneur. Let's get into it. I'm here with Kathryn McGarvey, Managing Director and Chief Listening Officer of one of my favourite named businesses ever, Nosy HQ, a strategic human research agency that knows the very best way to attract, convert and keep great customers is to deeply understand the ones you already have. Nosy HQ'd in New Zealand, helps businesses grow by uncovering what truly matters to their perfect fit customers. Kathryn transforms customer conversations, yes, real conversations talking to real customers, into strategic advantage for companies who are tired of random acts of marketing and ready to turn deep customer understanding into confident, strategic marketing decisions that deliver actual results. She's taken over 20 years marketing experience into this incredibly important niche, working with clients across all categories to really understand what their customers need and how to get through to them. But she has taken plenty of entrepreneurial tests to get herself here. I am a big fan of interviews for uncovering what really drives us, clearly. So I am fascinated by both Kathryn's business and the journey she's taken to get here with it. Kathryn, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Kim, thank you. It's great to be here.
It is great to have you. And I do love a person that loves the art of interviewing because, wow, it is a powerful, powerful thing to go through, or it can be terrible.
Powerful. Let's go with that one.
We definitely will not have a terrible interview today with you. I know that. Hey, I want to have a chat very briefly, as I like to start every show, learning a bit more about you and who you are through the eyes of someone who loves you. So think of your best friends and how they might describe you.
I think probably the first thing that they would say is you've got to have her on a pub quiz team because she knows a whole bunch of useless shit. Sorry to swear right up front, but it's true. I'm very good at retaining useless information. And I think they'd also say fun, funny, knows her own mind, good to have around. Let's hope.
Being somebody who's great at pub quizzes, as somebody who loves to watch The Chaser, it's my secret indulgence. I really love that show. I am always in such awe of people who can hold that level of fun fact in their mind. So I'm sure it's actually come in handy in your career as well over the years.
I think it's possibly I'm just a very curious person. So it doesn't matter whether it's what year was King Charles born or song titles from the 1970s. I'm like a bit of a magpie with information, and that's really helpful in a pub quiz.
What year was King Charles born?
1948. God, what a loser that I know that.
No, I love that. Now, you've had a pretty twisty journey to get to Nosy HQ. Take me through how this all happened and who you were before Nosy HQ.
Like many Australians and New Zealanders, I travelled overseas when I was in my 20s and really hadn't settled down into a career. Came back sort of for the last time after extensive travel and thought, I don't really want to do the admin type work or shop work, retail that I'd been doing. So I looked at what was available to study. And for a millisecond, thought about being a lawyer because I liked the idea of $350 an hour. But then I realized I'd have to be a lawyer, which, no disrespect to any lawyers out there, it just wasn't me. So then I looked at what was the next available thing that appealed, and there was a postgrad marketing diploma. So I applied for that, then got some marketing jobs, really just fell into marketing, and wouldn't say I had any kind of huge passion for it. It was just something to do. Fast forward about 15 years and moved to the small town in New Zealand where I live currently. And I realized I was probably unemployable because I didn't have a lot of respect. I think part of it was bad luck where I chose to work, but didn't have a lot of respect for the people hiring me, and felt backed into a corner and thought, actually, I need to do this on my own. Funnily enough, I got really jaded by marketing. So my first business that I did, I decided marketing was responsible for all the visual pollution in the world, which I still actually think is probably not too far from the truth. But yeah, thought marketing was responsible for the visual pollution in the world. I didn't want a part of it. So I taught myself to build websites and started building websites for small businesses locally. Then after a couple of years, I found that I was offering people way more value in free marketing advice when they were getting their websites built than they were actually paying me for the websites. So then started to do marketing consultancy. So I've done that. I started that maybe about 2018, 2019. Things went really well during COVID and lockdown because there were a lot of government grants available to help small businesses. So I got really quite busy over that time. And then actually it's coming up for 2 years ago, we had a big cyclone in our town that, personally, all we had was no power for 5 days, but there was vast devastation in the region. It decimated the regional economy, things slowed down. So I took that time, because you really don't feel like going out marketing yourself and asking people to hire you when they've got no homes or, when things are that tough. So I took some time to think about what it was that I really wanted to do, because in the 25 odd years since I started marketing, as you know, Kim, it's sort of changed beyond recognition. When I first started, we had to fill in a form if we wanted an email address that could send external emails. We had to justify why we needed it. And we had, we used to send letters to people. Our DMs were direct mail, as in mail that goes into your letterbox. And you needed contact rules. And nowadays you can email somebody 10 times a day if you want. So, marketing had really changed. And I think I'd fallen out of love a little bit with it. But what I realized when I took that time to stop and think about what it was that I really wanted to do is the part of my work that I would never procrastinate on, that I'd find myself leaning forward in a Zoom when I talked about it, or getting all excited when I talked about it, was with my bigger clients when I spoke to their customers directly. I interviewed their customers to get the customer insights. And with sort of 20 years marketing experience in my back pocket, reasonably mortified that I'd spent most of those 20 years not really going out there and talking to customers. I was marketing based on assumptions, guesses, hunches, what other people were doing, past experience. But actually, when you talk directly to people in the market for what you're selling, or people who have already bought what you sell, if you can understand them and their motivations and their habits and how they went from not having ever heard of you through to buying, if you can understand that, you can use that information in your marketing to attract more people like them. And it's a bit of a no-brainer. So that's how Nosy, and actually see in our language, Kim, we say HQ, not HQ. Never occurred to me in Australia it would be said differently. But yes, that's how Nosy HQ started.
Yeah, it's my weird Adelaidean accent, specifically. That's probably butchering that. Do you know, Kathryn, when you were talking there, I just found it so interesting that we can, or specifically in your story, but I think it applies for others that I've spoken to as well, that we can leave a role. So, you left marketing feeling like you're a bit disenfranchised by perhaps the people that you were working with, or feeling a little bit, just like over the business of it itself, to go do something completely different, to then come back to the thing that you felt disenfranchised by. It stood out to me because it's not dissimilar to my own journey when I left media, feeling, like this is frustrating, or, this is like intense, or, this is just, it doesn't need to be the world. Like there's just so much more, all those thoughts that I had that were very, very real at the time, to then go do something completely different. I mean, making ceramics is pretty different than media and marketing and advertising. To then just slowly pivot my way back into media through the power of audio. And I was in radio for years, and now I'm in, all the radio networks now call themselves audio networks anyway. But, now I'm just like so deeply embedded into audio. And it sometimes just takes shifting that mindset, or allowing yourself to be out of it for a moment, to then go, actually, there's aspects of this I really like. I just need to find the aspects that light me up the most, understanding it's not always going to be everything.
100%. I think having that distance is so valuable because it does allow you to come back and say, actually, I'm not interested in doing Instagram. I'm not interested in Google ads. I know what I want. And then whether it's an age thing as well, but you think, life's too short to be doing the bits that don't light you up. Why not do the things that you love that people have a need for?
I don't disagree. I think there's also that element within it that is like, even when you find the thing that is like, really lighting you up and really lean, there's still going to be aspects of it that give you the shits and things that are less interesting. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that. So, once you're leaning into this aspect of customer interviews and really understanding people, what was it like to set up a service offering for that? What was the process that you took?
Well, it was fun because I thought, for the first time in 30 odd years, I actually feel like I'm exactly where I should be, and I'm doing exactly what I was put here to do. And I've had friends and I've met people like a long time ago who were in their 30s or 20s and got to that stage, and it never happened for me. And I just thought it was something that wasn't going to happen. So I think there was possibly a little bit of smugness on my behalf, just thinking, I've cracked it at last, as usual, behind the 8 ball, slower than everybody else to get to the same place. But I take my own time to do things and got there in the end.
I was chatting to someone just this morning for this show, and we talked about the concept of end goaling and everybody's end goals. And, I think that comes through in what you just shared then is, we see people around us who find their quote unquote purpose or something that lights them up. And I think it's a real trap, the purpose trap, because it makes us feel like we're not achieving something because we can see other people that have done it, and we only ever see their end goal. And, age at the end of the day is really just a construct that we've made up to help us keep time, right? Like, how long have we been alive on this earth? And then all of a sudden we're like, well, if we're not huge successes by the time we hit the big 4-0, what are we doing with our lives? And, it's seeing other people's end goals. It's seeing other people's experience of living in this purpose that makes us feel like we're behind, or like we're never going to get to that thing, or we have to know what that thing looks like before we even start. And I think, hearing even your story in the lead up and taking a pivot into websites, building that, realizing actually there's a business within the business here, leaning into that. And then actually there's a business within the business here. Let me lean into this aspect of it more and, really lean into this process. That's more often what it looks like for people.
It's not a straight line from A to B. One of the kindest things anybody has ever said to me were some family friends who are Tasmanian, and I was probably in my late 20s and not knowing what I was doing. And Pamela said, Kathryn, some of the most interesting people I know are in their 60s and still don't know what they were doing, which was such a gift for somebody that I really respected to say that to me, because it gave me 40 years to still get to the right place. And it was just a comfort that maybe it's just the journey. It's such a hackneyed and cliched thing, but maybe it is just the journey, not the destination, that counts.
I have such a love-hate relationship with cliches like that, because it's like I use the word journey so much because I don't know any other way to explain it. And, I even when I say it, I'm like, oh, here I go again, explain it as a journey. But genuinely, there is no other way to explain that is actually where it happens. And when you lean into that and go, actually, the destination that I come up with today for myself is going to be completely different to the one I come up with next week anyway. So fuck it. I might as well just do what I'm doing and learn the things along the way. And it's only cumulative anyway when we look back to go, wow, look at what happened across that process. It's never like have a goal, work to a goal, get a goal, yay, everything is done. And I think we're often taught that is the process through consuming other people's end goals or consuming other people's opinion about what success should look like in a career or in business. And it's a shame.
But Kim, actually, doesn't that sound really boring? Having a goal, going for it, achieving it, moving on to the next one. Like, where's the fun in that? Where's the life? Where's the stuff around the fringes that gives life its colour?
I couldn't agree more. I'm all for living life in colour. I don't wear it, but it's all across my brand. You'll see that in everything that I do. But it brings me back to Nosy HQ, the brand, because your service offering, customer understanding through customer interviews, how I described it up front, it makes sense. It's really clear what it is that you offer, but not the most simple thing to put on people's mindsets as a service that they should be investing in. I'm sure the sales process is a bit of a process for you, but that does start with a brand, I guess. So take me through that whole experience.
I have a really clever copywriter friend, and she helped me with the name. And I felt like I had spent months thinking about this. I had A4 pages of scribbled notes with names that I would think was so clever one day, and then the following week it would be so mortifying that I ever thought that was useful. So I found it really interesting how once that name came to be, it really settled things in my head, and I felt like this was a great name, something that I could be proud of, and it helped me feel like I could pull everything together. Because if a service didn't fit under the umbrella of Nosy HQ, then it wasn't working. I've got to be completely honest, I am still in, I launched Nosy HQ 5 months ago, and I have people ask me to do different interviewing type services that aren't necessarily related to marketing, like for HR purposes and staff satisfaction. And I get overexcited thinking, I'm just happy. I like talking to strangers. I'm delighted that I am getting paid to be nosy and talk to people and understand more about their world. But I think I have to try and keep my focus on the marketing side of things. So that's been a real challenge for me, but I am still figuring out what do the services mean after each job or after each project, kind of learn something to take forward. And even though, so what, my website's 5 months old, it wouldn't do it any harm for me to have another little edit over it and refine it even further. But then I think I'm really good at tinkering things and never knowing when to stop, and that's changing this year.
If you've been telling yourself that next year, the proverbial next year, is the year that you'll launch your podcast as part of a powerful content strategy to drive connection and impact for your business, let's make 2025 the actual year together. Every great show starts with a seed idea, a conversation you want to have, or a need you want to fulfill for a type of listener. But the shows that connect with an audience and bring you business results are the ones with staying power. They're backed with a strong strategic thinking custom to the specific nuances of the podcast medium, the one you're listening to right now, plus brand and content marketing knowledge. I can deliver this for you. It's me, of course, your host, Kim Curtin, and I can deliver this for you. If you've been connecting with me here on this show for more than a minute, you'll already know how passionate I am about podcasts and that I'm a skilled podcast strategist with over 15 years in media, creating strategic branded content concepts across broadcast and podcast. And I want to help you create a podcast concept that you are excited about and that will deliver for your business. I've opened access to a special one-on-one podcast strategy session with me for the first time ever to refine and stress test your idea, discuss what will work and what to watch out for, and how to measure your success and anything else that you might need to feel confident in this exciting podcast medium. It's 60 minutes, one-to-one, and $199. All you have to come prepared with is a seed idea, no matter how small, and together we'll form this into a show concept that you'll be proud to pursue. Interested? I'll make sure that the link is available for you in the About section of this podcast, or you can head straight to goodsideofthebed.com.au to check it out, or just come and find me on LinkedIn and I'll deliver it directly to your inbox. And I hope to see you there, and I hope to see you creating a podcast you're proud of for your business in 2025. I think that is a very relatable bunch of sentences, actually, for anybody who's in business, because, I couldn't tell you. I'm glad they don't actually, on my website provider, which is Squarespace, I'm glad that they don't provide like how many times you've edited it or like refer back to a previous version, because, I have two websites, one for Unemployed and Afraid and one for Good Side of the Bed, which is my consultancy and podcast strategy. And the amount of times I have changed those websites, the services, the about me, the social proof, the visual way and things are explained, the photos I use is just ridiculous. I completely understand that aspect of it, but also very, very helpful to talk a little bit more about the fact that the service offering changes and evolves as you actually do service clients. That is an experience that so many in the service-based industry probably don't realize as much until they talk to fellow service providers who are willing to be really open and honest with them and not say, it's really easy, it's a 5-step process, do this, hire this coach, buy that process, it's fine, you'll work it out. It's like, no, the ones that are honest will be saying, hey, you're going to make something, you're going to sell it to someone, or someone's just going to ask you to do something. You're going to reverse engineer a service offering, have no fucking idea what to charge for it. And then you're going to do it. And then you go, oh, that was actually hugely over complex. I could probably simplify that into 2 separate structures. And this is how I could do it next time. Like, that's how it goes.
Kim, have you been reading my diary?
This is why this show exists, because, it's incredibly important to recognize that that's actually how these things go. There's so many people that are probably who listen to this show, but, just out there in the world, I hope this show reaches, who are like sitting in their roles or sitting in a business that's become unsatisfactory for whatever reason, going, I just want to do this. And going, if I could only just figure out exactly what service offering to make and exactly how much to charge for it, then I could go through selling it. And it's like, yeah, cute. That's definitely like the way where we start. But the reality is just put something out there. Just throw a fucking 1-hour session with you to do X out there and see what comes in off the back of it. Promote the hell out of it. Change it as many times as you need to. Has that, 5 months is not, it's actually one of my juiciest windows in which to talk to generous business owners, because I think you learn so much. What has it been like for you putting service offerings out into the world? How are you going about it?
So I am active on LinkedIn. That's that's the only social media I use. Might be my age, Gen X. It might be that I'm a jaded marketer, but I used to be on Instagram, and sometimes, when your phone comes up with 7 years ago today, I think, how much time have I spent in my life taking photos for Instagram when I'm not a good photographer? I'm happy to say that I can write well, but so Instagram's not my platform. I stick to LinkedIn. I do a network. I keep in touch with people. I reach out to people, but mostly that's not for, this is a nice byproduct, but it's not primarily to sell. It's to build relationships. I like getting to know people. In this business, you've got to be curious about people. So the more people that I get to know and like and understand them and have them understand what I do, a lot of my work has actually come from referrals, from copywriters, from strategy people who, one of the things about what I do is when I tell business owners what I do, they get it. So I like to get to know people, not purely because I want to make a sale through them, but I'm interested in people in the first place. I like getting to know them. I like understanding them. Like, life's too short. I like meeting good people, and there are an awful lot of good people that you can meet on LinkedIn. And I've also found they've been a really good source. Like, a lot of my work has come through referrals. So whether that's a copywriter or a strategy person, and I've found those people, because they're a little bit closer to the strategy and the work and understand the benefits of customer research, they are great advocates for the service. When I explain to a business owner or a newer marketer who hasn't had that much experience what I do, you can kind of see the light go on in their eyes. Oh, yeah, it does make sense that if I really understand my customer, then I can market better to them. But it is a harder sales job when people are coming in, unaware that this is a service that even exists and that this is a good idea. So a lot of the way that I've marketed and got clients has been, fortunately, through referrals or repeat customers.
I think that's a really underrated mention, is like how long the sales process can take and how just much it requires you to just be really present in your relationships with people and micro sell to them, whether it's through a post and then a conversation and then a referral and then a testimonial and all of that process. It is a bit of a slow and painful one sometimes, particularly when it comes to revenue planning, forecasting, thinking about what you might be working on from a time perspective. How has that experience been for you in all of your roles, really? Because as a business owner, you've been service offering for a long time. What have you learned through that process that helps you get through the unknown of what the hell am I working on next month?
I've learned that I know nothing, and whatever I think I know, I am likely to get wrong. I put plans together and forecasts together, and then somebody will get sick. Life happens when you're running a business. And, I've had parents to deal with. I've had kids to deal with. We have no power for a week and a bit when there's a cyclone. So I actually don't have a good answer for you, Kim, because I have yet to nail that. I think the only thing that I've learned in what must be around about 10 years of business, or maybe 12, is that things can go up and can be feeling great. And you think, okay, I've nailed this. I know I've got this. And then something happens. The economy changes. You can't predict. At least I can't. But if anybody out there can help with that, I'd love to have a listen.
How does that feel for you on the client side? I think about this a lot just in my own work, because one day I can have Colonial First Date come through and I'm booked out for months, and the next I'm sort of like, oh, I've been working on this and I don't have anything pending now. So I need to get out there and promote my services to people, and then all of a sudden it's an influx. It's like feast or famine. How does that work for you in terms of your comfort level managing your potential revenue, 6 months in advance, looking at that, not knowing what's going to come in?
If I'm 100% honest, I am very grateful that I've got a partner who has a regular income. So I don't need to stress as much as I would if that backstop wasn't there. Like, my kids will get fed regardless of how the business does. I have early days. I still am, but I'm very good at putting money aside for tax and savings. And over the period of the cyclone, when I was rethinking the business, that was probably 4 months that barely any revenue was coming in. And that certainly wasn't anticipated, but I had a little buffer of savings. I think, was it the Lisa O'Neill podcast that I was just listening to? And she talked about having a buffer in there. And I was nodding my head when I was listening, because if you can do it, if you can spare the cash flow, and I don't know how long ago that interview with Lisa was recorded, but I'm not sure about Queensland, but I know things economically have been a bit tough for people here for the last 6 months, and having any extra cash to put into savings isn't all that easy. But when times are good, if you can put some stuff aside, goodness, it pays off when you need it.
I love that episode. If the listener hasn't gone back and listened to that one, please do immediately after this one, because there are so many powerful learnings in there, particularly about finances. So many of our businesses, depending on the scale, put us to the pressure month on month. We sort of like are, spending, waiting to come in. We're trying to balance cash flow, all of those things. There's that aspect of it. There's that aspect of saving for a rainy day. But then it's also like the micro lessons in that as well for the people who might be in full-time employment or part-time employment, and finding ways, whether it is through a direct, if you do have a partner or, someone you share your life with, having direct conversations to be like, this is going to be up and down. So this is what it's going to look like, before you go in. So you don't feel so much of the pressure, or if you are doing it alone without that extra support, thinking like, okay, how do I, some of the best businesses that I've seen, through this podcast, people running them have part-time jobs, and you wouldn't know it. They don't talk about it anywhere, but it's, it's part-time this, it's part-time that. It's not, side hustle is I have a love-hate relationship with that term as well, because it's all just a hustle at the end of the day. Like, you're just working on things, whether or not you're working full-time and building something out, in the corners of your day and on your weekends, or you are, practical side hustle, week split down the middle. There's just so many ways to approach this. But the most important thing is to never, I found, is to never stick your head in the sand when it comes to cash. Like, talking about money, financial literacy, planning ahead, knowing there are going to be months potentially where you're not making any money, whether that be because your expenses go up in the business, or because you just got a real dry patch of clients. It doesn't make you a failure. It's just the market. Like, it's just, things just go, it means you just have to make changes. You have to improve your marketing, like whatever it is. There's going to be those phases. So yeah, I'm a big fan of like honesty around money and structures and all of those things, because otherwise we look at everybody's stories, we're like, how the fuck's everyone paying for this? Like, how are they paying for their lives? Like, we have to talk about it.
It's probably like maybe April last year. So in the wake of the cyclone, and things were really dire, hadn't launched the new business yet, and things did get really desperate. And, there's a sense of shame in it, but I thought, I'm going to have to find some sort of work. Like, I don't want to bury the business. I'm not prepared to let it go, but I might just have to put it in hibernation or park it, because I can't keep having, expenses and nothing coming through. And I sent an email to about 5 local friends in the marketing industry basically saying, I need something. So if you hear of anything, even if it's something that that I will hate, ideally a 3-month contract full-time might have been, something like that might have been perfect. And not that I'm woo-woo in the slightest, but I don't know, Kim, whether it was just the universe needed me to get to rock bottom, because as soon as I sent those 5 emails, like literally 2 or 3 days later, a big contract came through the door, and I didn't need to do it. But I also looked at, do I have to abandon this? How much easier is it just to get a paycheck every month? And it doesn't matter, you're not lying awake at night thinking about the business. That's what, like, I'm sure it's been said on this podcast before, and that's what nobody told me about. As soon as you start a business, you think about it all the time. Like, every waking moment is ideas or stress or worry, or I haven't done this, or have I forgotten to do that? Like, it lives in your brain.
Oh, it really does. And yeah, there's so much to be said there for, I'm a little bit woo, I'll be honest. I'm like, I like to say I'm just woo. I'm one woo. But it also depends, like I could probably add the extra woo on every now and then with some of the shit that I'm into. But I do absolutely believe that, there's a concept that I listen to and I play around with all the time about aligned action. And it's like, when you take an action towards something you want or need in your life without necessarily being fixed to the outcome of what that's going to look like, but you just bring it back down to basics. Like, okay, there needs to be some income generation here. And for somebody in a business, somebody like myself, okay, I've got a lot of value to share, and perhaps I could reach people with that value by creating a digital asset. So I need to take an action. And so I start working on that. What that does energetically is open up that kind of, that right path, the openness changes, like things, I don't know, there's a little bit of woo in it, but also just putting a message out there and saying, hey, this might be something that I need. And then you get the thing that you didn't realize you need or that you wanted it all along. Like there's just something there. Like we've got to just take the pressure off of thinking that one action that we take is going to lead to the perfect outcome and the thing is going to happen and then that thing's going to lead to that thing. Like I'm an absolute demon for it. Like I love to over strategize and think, okay, so if I get in touch with this person, okay, that'll probably come off with a piece of work here and then it will lead to this. Like, no, send the email, just have a conversation, make the thing, and then just sit back and see what happens. Keep pumping it out, keep taking aligned action, be aware of where you're at and what you can do, and then just be open to what comes back in. Like, I love that level of work.
Okay, maybe I'm a woo then.
Just a little bit of W in there. That makes a lot of sense. And it is very stressful. So I really empathize with that experience as well. You do work primarily alone, as many service providers in this type of field do. I myself do it as well. So this is quite the loaded question. How are you going? How do you manage that? What works for you and what doesn't about working alone?
I do work alone. I've invested really deeply in relationships, and I found once I launched Nosy HQ, I reached out to, so I was a marketer primarily, and now I'm a researcher. And the research community in this country, the people that I've reached out to, like have some of them I feel like are really close friends now, even though we've never met in the flesh. I'm conscious and make a conscious effort to keep in touch with people. So like I know people bag Zoom, but I love Zoom because it brings people into my world that I wouldn't have ever encountered otherwise. I also find I go for coffee a lot and just a takeaway, and ridiculously I have like the world's smallest coffee and it's decaf. So it's really just, but I do it for social purposes. I think just to, like, I have an office in town, so I can just go downstairs, say hi to some people. I think that sort of stuff helps, but it is hard. I think having friends or people in the same situation, running businesses, even if the businesses are different to yours, having people to talk to and share things with and just to bounce ideas off or get their perspective is invaluable. I don't know how people do it if they work at home on their own, aren't having that social contact and are self-contained. Like, good for them, but I couldn't make it work for me.
I understand completely. I couldn't imagine going to that degree. I think I probably have more social conversation given that half of my job is interviewing people for this podcast. So I get to have a lot, and then being service-based. But yeah, I must say, like, going to a cafe and just being around energy and the energy of other people. Like if I go too long without doing that, I start to go a little, batshit. It makes me sort of start to bounce off the walls. I feel really anxious. And I most certainly, as somebody who works alone, I miss creative brainstorming with other people and bouncing or working to an outcome together. And, and I think it is the reason that I asked, because a lot of people see the dream of people working for themselves and running their own race and keeping their own time and working with customers and all that sort of stuff. And like, I love it. It's fantastic, but geez, it does not fill everything. If I could have somebody running this business with me, or if I could have a team of people that I was working with again on any kind of project like that triggers a certain sense of activity that just, can't necessarily be replicated when you are working as a solopreneur. So, I think awareness of that and that enables you to go get your little coffee, go have, for me, I go have an editing session at a cafe, which is a terrible idea because it's a tiny screen. I end up with a wild headache trying to do it on a small screen. But just being around people, writing creative ideas when I'm in a cafe is just so much better. So I'm glad I asked. Where do you hope that this experience with Nosy HQ, did I say that right?
Yeah, well done.
Here we go. Nosy HQ might take you?
I don't know, and I don't care. Like, does that sound terrible? It's not that I don't care, nope. But like every time I went through a period at the end of like 13 months ago, I did a project around gin, and I decided that gin people are the best people in the world. They're lovely and they're really creative. Then I did a project around supply chain management, and I decided that supply chain management were the loveliest people in the world. So I don't have big plans other than to gather lots of information and meet lots of people. Like 17-year-old me would be absolutely baffled. Like I've also just recently finished a project about mold in commercial buildings. Now, Kim, it was so interesting. And 17-year-old me would be cringing so hard at the thought that commercial mold could possibly be something interesting. So at this stage, I don't care as long as I keep getting the work and keep learning new things and pay the bills.
I think that's a fantastic response. We need to take the pressure off ourselves a little bit in our businesses and just see where it takes us and see what we enjoy in the moment without needing it to make sense to other people or to build up to some bigger purpose. So I think that is a fantastic answer. And look, Kathryn, as it always is when I get the pleasure to chat with people at all stages and phases of business, at all industries, at all levels, there is so much to take away for the people who are, in the thick of their business, even if it's completely unrelated. It's just that through the art of sharing stories that we really do start to see ourselves and see what's possible. You see to believe, take 1% from here, 10% from there. So I just love the opportunity to be able to share business stories with my listener and the broader community. So thank you so much for sharing your story with me today. In return, what can we do to get around you and support you a little bit? How can we help you to do more great work through Nosy HQ?
Well, I'm on a mission to have more people listen to what their customers have to tell them and to use that to be more profitable in their business. So by all means, if anybody wants to look at my website or refer to me, but actually, if I knew that there were people out there being brave, because it can be difficult or scary, the thought of talking to customers, but go out there and talk to them, and then feel free to drop me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me your story, because I'd love it if more people listen to their customers.
I think that is brilliant. And you're inspiring me too. It's probably about time I have a conversation with some of the incredible listeners on this show to be able to grow it in a way that serves them as best as I possibly can. So if you're a regular listener of this show and you want to get in touch with me to have a conversation, please do. I need to know what you love about this show so that I can reach more people who will love what this show is all about. So great advice. And you've actually inspired me to take an action there. So extra bonus for that. I'll make sure to put the link to your website and the link to your LinkedIn, my favorite place to play, as the listener knows well and truly, if you're here with me often, and I'll put them in the show notes so that listener can go and get around you. Thank you again for spending the time with me today.
Oh, Kim, it's been such a pleasure talking. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.